I will briefly present the features at high level of our first release and what we envision to have in our second release, and then I will give the floor again to Haris and the colleagues from the Hellenic Parliament to present the Greek EU legal context scenario. Okay, so the ManyLaws portal, as of course Haris presented, has a number of user-oriented services. However, these to be enabled, there are a number of backend components that allow the implementation of these services. First and foremost, of course, is to access and analyze the big legal data sources and integrate them in the portal, which is one major objective of the ManyLaws project. In the first release, crawler has been developed to crawl data from the Greek National Printing House. Then integration has been achieved with the Austrian Parliament RIS API for the consolidated versions of the laws. And also, we have integrated it with the ULEX API to access European legislation and directives. Of course, all this data needed to be processed and mined and structurally described. So one quite major work part and the major outcome of the project has been the definition of the ManyLaws metadata schema, both from a semantic as well as structural description point of view, taking into consideration and aligning with different metadata standards like DCAT AP, which is used, of course, by the European data portal to harvest open data sources, but also legal ontologies like ELI and Acomodoso. And we have defined specific metadata elements that are pertinent for the ManyLaws project goals and advanced services, like describing the text mining results for annotating legal documents, for example, engrams. Of course, to be able to instantiate the values in these metadata fields, we have capitalized on quite sophisticated legal data text mining and metadata extraction methods to automatically analyze Greek, Austrian, and European legal data and discover and instantiate correlations. And to extract engrams, you will hear them also during the demonstration, which are frequent stem terms or set of them which are describing the legal text and allow us to find similar or relevant legal documents. Then, of course, since we are tackling not only national but transnational and European at the end, open data, legal data, we have developed translation services. So we have integrated and used already the SEF Telecom translation DSI for translating the extracting metadata in different languages, currently in Austrian, Greek, and English. Integrated and use the ATE API, which is an API for legal terms translation in order to translate search keywords. And of course, we have developed multilingual support for English, Greek, and Austrian German for the ManyLaws portal. Then, what the users sees actually are the search and uses are the search and visualization services. So we have the conventional keyword-based search for any type of search engine. This is also the ManyLaws portal, which is quite a specialized search engine for legal data, filters and search in different languages and time periods, timeline visualization, which is also interactive for presenting the life cycle of the law, graph visualization to present the correlations with other laws and other correlations visualization that Haris also mentioned, and a personalized dashboard for the user that allows keeps the history of searches or saves searches, etc. Now, what will come in the final release that will be available in winter, and of course the utmost final release catering also for feedback from the pilots that we will contact will be available next year in April. is to fully integrate other big legal data sources, also the Hellenic Parliament API and the RIS API for parliamentary data, to further enhance, if necessary, the alignment process for the metadata schema that has been defined, to further analyze all the new incoming data from the new data sources that I mentioned, using also the RIS HPC infrastructure for doing these heavy processing tasks. And of course, to integrate social media mining, because there is also a need to capture the view of the citizens with respect to a new law legislation that is being formulated. And in the search and visualization services, we will of course include enhancements based on user feedback, but add a full textual comparison and the automated assessment of the transposition degree of a law with an EU directive. And we'll add also a manual annotation tool for maybe legal experts to correct the results of the semantic processing of laws, which is, as you know, not 100% accurate. So stay tuned to see also our next release. And now I give the floor to to Dr. Guenther, to Mr. Haris Alexopoulos, sorry, and Mr. Nektarios Kyriakou and Mina Gerassidou to present the Greek EU legal scenario. Thank you.
So, Sofia, I will make the brief introduction in the scenario.
Can I make a short question?
Yeah.
Just very quickly, because you said that you did the semantic annotation and the structural description of the document, the initial one. Has this done completely automated, fully automated, or it was by human intervention, the semantic annotation of the documents and the structural description?
Sorry.
No, it's text mining on the PDFs that for the Hellenic side, at least for the Greek side, we are proceeding with a fully automated solution that provides everything. All the data should be automatically mined and put in the right place in the ontology. So this is the scope. We have created most of the data fields until now. So yeah, it's fully automated for the extraction of the semantic information from the documents. It's not only that we are getting metadata for the document, but also we separate the law, as you will see in the demonstration, of course, in different parts. So the structural form of a law is there. We have understood it, and we will present it to you. And thank you for your question, because now I need to Stefania provide the screen of the first page of ManyLaws, and we can go through while I'm explaining. We can go through the scenarios. So, Stefania, could you please?
Yes, Haris, hello from my side.
So first, we will show you how a Greek law could be searched and found in. We're using Elasticsearch, not changed. It's a pure Elasticsearch that we use in the search terms. So if you put the search term in Greek, then you will find the results. Then if you pick your law, then you are interested in, then you can find some analysis in that. Of course, you can find the structural mode of this law. So not a PDF, but we understand the parts of the law. So many laws presented like article, paragraph, etc. Then you will see some of the visualization services, the correlations that we have found based on this example that we created for you, and to see the timeline of this service. Then we will proceed with the EU part. So we will showcase the EU correlations, the graph-based correlations between the EU directives, and then how they can be compared with the Greek version. So please, Stefania, if you could start showcasing, and I will explain everything, or you can take the floor. I will intervene when necessary.
Yes, Harris, thank you. Okay, I will give you a demonstration of the current portal that we have developed until now. So if you have any questions after that, for a technical point of view, me and my colleagues from Indra will answer. If it is about the legal value of the project, I will kindly ask my colleagues for Hellenic and Austrian Parliament to answer
a bit,
this.
Stefania. Yes, we have some questions already. Do you use IATE and Eurovoc? Yes, we use both. IATE, we use it for the translated search you will see here, and Eurovoc we are using in order to determine and assign the thematic value of a law. So
yes, indeed, Harry, but I would like to have the questions answered at the end of the session, so that we not interrupt presentations. Thank you.
Good.
Okay, here on the top we have the two search services, let's say, that we provide in ManyLaws portal. The first one is the plain search. As Harry said before, if I input here a Greek keyword or phrase and hit enter, I will have as a result some Greek laws regarding the keywords that I input.
We are searching now the data protection, personal data protection legal documents or laws in Greece. So if you are typing in Greek, then you don't have to tick the country there. You get always the Greek results if you're typing in Greek. If you're typing in English, you will get directives firstly. And if you are proceeding with a translated service, you can actually have whatever you select in this translated search.
Exactly. Okay, I will open this one. And okay, let's since Harris said, let's demonstrate first the translated search. So if I input here personal data on, on the translated search tab, and I hit enter, I also have to click the language that I will input. And here the IATE API give us the translated terms, and we can see on the results list that we have results from all the legal frameworks that are on the portal. And here in the left, we have a list of filters. So if I use the translated search and have multiple results, I can narrow it down by clicking a filter. Okay. That's weird. Okay, now it works. Personal data. this one and this one. The Greek law and the EU directive regarding the personal data, like the GDPR and all this. And here we can see the details of the law. We have available all the law text and also a URL here that goes us to the PDF of this law. And on the left here, this tree view helps the user to navigate on the particular parts of the law that he wants to visit, if not the whole law, some particular paragraphs, for example, and also for the European directive, we have the same structure. Let's start with the first visualization service. For this particular law that we selected is the relational graph, where we can see in a graph representation all the relations that are extracted for this law. For example, we can see a consolidates and a consolidated by relation, and also a transposes. And if I click here on the particular relation, I can see the subgraph, and I can see the details of the law that is that have the relation with our current law. For this example, we chose to demonstrate the transposes part, so we can see the transposition between an EU directive and the Greek law. So if I click here, I can see the description of this directive. It's exactly the directive that the search provided us before, the GDPR one. In order to compare these two laws a bit more, we have an extra service that is the comparison. So if I click these two top results that the search provided me and hit the compare law button, I will see these two texts side by side, and because there are they belong to different legal frameworks, the Greek law is translated to English.
Using the translation DSI provided by the European Commission.
Yeah.
This is the service you are using to make the translation of Greek to English and Austrian to English.
Exactly. This is a service that is under development, and we are going to provide some metrics for comparing these two laws, some metrics about the relativity that we will demonstrate in the next phase of the project. Okay, so I'm going back.
And we need to showcase how we can correlate EU directives only. So to find correlations between EU directives, or you have something else? Sorry.
I have the timeline visualization for the Greek laws.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so I will demonstrate a different law because this is an older law, so we have much information on the timeline. Okay, and I'm going to the timeline visualization, and here in the first level we are seeing all the life cycle of this particular law. Here is the creation details, the date of creation and the date of publication, and here is the changed by, the amended by, and the repealed by correlation that imposed from other laws to this law. And if I click the other laws, I can see some details about that this Greek law changes our current law, also for the amended by correlation. And if I click this arrow, I can see the particular changes, the particular part of the law that the changes are imposed by. And if I click here, I can see that
at the level of article and paragraph.
exactly,
may.
guys. And I can zoom in and zoom out, so to the particular change and all that. And if I click, I am seeing that this law is amended by the particular article by the other article, as you described. Okay, another way to compare these laws that we see on the timeline is the related text comparison. Is similar with the other comparison that I described earlier. But here we are in the same legal framework and we have two Greek laws, and all the laws that are relating with this left current law are here in a drop-down list, so we can compare these laws text by text. And we will also want to add the relativity metric that I described earlier for the next phase of the project. Okay, I think these are the examples for the Greek laws I would like to show you. And as Harris described, here we have some relational graph examples about EU directives. And in order to explain and describe how the relations between directives work, and here have a directive that has amends and sides relations, and we can see it on the graph here. The orange one is our current directive, the purple ones are these that are sides, and the amends is the green one. And if I click on them, I can see the description of this directive, and if I click here, I can visit the whole text in the tree view that I described earlier.
Which is also structurally analyzed. So every piece of text that we are using here or we analyze is we have imported. It's structurally analyzed.
And here we have a Save Law button, and as Sofia described earlier, for the logged in users, we have an extra dashboard tab here that the user can see his search history, the last 10 or 20 searches, and here we have the saved laws. So when I click the button in the details tree, I can save here all the laws and not have to search for them again. I think that is for me for the Greek and EU case.
Yes, I think so too.
Okay.
Something to say is that in the metadata schema and the ontological approach that we have followed, we have used, Sofia said it before, but I would like to make a note on that. We made we merged three metadata schemas.
And metadata schema, yeah.
Yeah, three ontological approaches: the DCAT, the ELI, and the Commandoso. I think it's one of the first attempts, or the unique attempt that tries to do that. So to align these three basic ontologies in order to produce one common metadata schema that explains the legal domain.
Yeah.
If I may say.
I will have to interrupt you, Harry, because we are now running out of time. So I would give now the floor to Dr. Guenther to present the legal scenario for the Austrian demonstration.
Thank you very much, Sofia. Perhaps introductorily, I should refer to the fact that the structure of the pieces of legislation from the Austrian jurisdiction that we ingested to to the ManyLaws portal so far is different from the legal sources from the Hellenic jurisdiction that you have seen until now. That's due to the fact that the data sources are different. The data that we are so far using, and we will of course enlarge the data corpus in the future, but the data that we are so far using is coming from the legal information system, the so-called RIS, Rechtsinformationssystem. Harris has already mentioned it before, of the Austrian federal government, which offers non-authentic consolidated versions of legislation. So the granularity is different. The granularity is based on the section level, which you will easily recognize once we go through some practical examples in the next minutes. So you remember that for Hellenic legislation, you have the whole text of a particular piece of legislation, of a law, structured down to the section and article and paragraph level, whereas for the Austrian legislation, it's so to say the other way around. We are starting at the section level and then have to reconstruct larger pieces of legislation. This is just for introduction. The scenario that we were talking about before and that we would like to show you, thanks to Stefania, that she will share her screen with all of you now, and that she will operate the practical research performance. The scenario that we were discussing and preparing was taken from real life. The idea was we are looking at a student from whatever EU member state, from Greece, from Ireland, for example, who would like to study abroad, for example, in Austria, and who'd like to know what is the legal framework for doing so? What's the legal framework for going to another EU country and attending university there? Let's start at the European legal level. So the first question that such a student, for example, could put to our system, to our portal, was what's the legal acts at the EU level, the EU legal acts guaranteeing all EU citizens, including myself, the freedom of movement and residence. So the search string in that case could be freedom and movement and residence. So we are, of course, using the Boolean AND operator. And we would come up with the European in first place in the hit list with the European Directive 38 out of 2004, which is implementing that particular right of freedom of movement and residence on the ground of the respective rights as laid down in the primary law, which we have not yet in the system. So otherwise, we would, of course, here also have certain elements or certain fragments of the primary law, like the Article 21 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, which is laying down the freedom of movement at the primary law level. Here we have the directive implementing that primary law. We can, of course, like before, have a look at the text of this directive. And so you already know the structure. We have the whole text. We don't have the preamble here. We just have the text of the directive, but we have structured it down in the left bar and easily can navigate within the text and have a look at a particular article. If, for example, this would be a law student who already would know what articles and what paragraphs and what fragments would be of particular interest to that particular search. Otherwise, you would have the whole text and be able to read through the whole text. Of course, you, like before, could also make use of the translation services here, but since you have already seen this functionality, we can go to the next level and go down to the particular regulations within Austrian legislation, in our example, which might restrict the access to university students. From European law, you easily can see that as an EU citizen, you have the freedom to go everywhere in the European Union, and of course, this freedom would include the freedom to study everywhere. But in many EU countries, there are restrictions of the access to university studies. And these restrictions are very differently. So in many countries, for example, you have restrictions due to the qualification for studying. So the question now could be, what restrictions of that kind are there in Austria? And so Stefania already has entered search terms in German or Austrian German in that particular case, because we are looking at Austrian legal language. And she knows, because of course, as you can imagine, we have tested the case before, she already knows the legal terms in Austria, and these legal terms are Zulassung, which means as much as getting access, and Studium, which means as much as study. And when having entered these search terms, you get to a relatively small hit list containing 11 hits. And these hits would be, as you will be able to see when scrolling through the hit list, these hits are over time, because so far we have not set a time filter. In the left bar, you again see the possibility to filter in accordance with time, but to make it and keep it simple, we have not set a time filter for the time being. And so because this is a small hit list, so we receive all these documents available over time. If you now would like to know what's the currently valid version, you can easily also go through to this hit list and click on the most recent documents. Like to follow this particular example, the section 71C in the version of 2018. If you look at the hit, you easily can see this is the most recent version. So if we now open this document, you see now we don't have the whole text of the Universitätsgesetz of the University Act of 2002. This is a very, very long legal document. We just have the particular section that we were looking at. And so now if you were able to read German, of course, once again, we can do the translation, for example, to English, but it tells you that this is a particular restriction which applies to German students that are affected by the German numerus clausus. Perhaps you know the German university system. In Germany, there is a so-called numerus clausus in place, which means that the number of students allowed to access particular university studies is restricted, and the admission depends on the qualification as proved by the graduation from high school. So now we have chosen this example because over the past 15 years, since 2005, this has been a matter of debate between Austria and Germany. And so now from this matter of debate, we can go over to the third sub-scenario in this small scenario that we have created here. And so now the actor in this third stage, or on this third stage of the scenario, would be, for example, a political decision maker who was involved in that debate and would, for example, try to prepare for a discussion with political decision makers from Germany over that particular restriction affecting German students. For that purpose, it could be of interest to see and get visualized how this particular regulation has evolved over time. And that's what the timeline service that you have seen before in the Greek example on the level of a piece of legislation at large would be of use here. So sorry to say that this obviously just shows the one version that we have seen now. That's the most recent version. Probably that's due to the fact that still the algorithm that we are using to visualize this timeline is not aligned with the metadata structure of these section documents, and the changes changed by relation. This is anyway in a demo of a first version of a prototype, just to show you how it will look like in the future. In the future, then of course you would in this timeline have the different versions of that section. So this was just a very brief scenario of how someone could interact with this portal to get answers to very specific legal questions. Of course, not yet all the data are ingested, not yet all the functions are available, but you get a first impression. And of course, we are very interested in getting your feedback and getting your questions. I have seen there have already been several questions in the chat, getting your feedback and your questions, getting your demands for the further development of all these features, so that in the remaining time of the project, we can further work on it and improve functionalities and improve the databases.
Thank you, Guenther. I would like now to proceed with. While we are going to answer questions, I would like Stefania to share the questionnaire. So we have.
If you may, Kari, I can introduce Stefania. So now it's Stefania Belkar from the Noob University of Krems that will give you the link for the next questionnaire to answer while we are actually answering your questions that you have placed on the chat. Thank you, Kari. And Stefania?
Thank you very much, Sofia, and a very good afternoon to everyone. I just post the link to the second questionnaire into the chat window. I also have them up on a slide. So if there are no further slides from my colleagues, I can share. I'll share my screen briefly.
Yes, please.
And please, both links to both parts of the questionnaire are now up on the screen. Please do fill in both parts of the questionnaire. There's a reason for this, because we'd really like to know a bit about you and your expectations, as well as what you think now that you have seen the prototype demonstrated. With that, I hand over back to Sofia and Harris and open the floor for questions.
Thank you very much, Stefania. Please do provide your feedback to us. It is valuable to see where we can enhance and improve. This is our first release. We still have time to develop the existing services, as well as add what I mentioned as the future planned ones. Now, I've seen a number of questions on the chat. Some have been already answered, but I will now present the ones that have not. There is a question about the project to be commercialized. And yes, actually one part of the work in the ManyLaws project is sustainability and exploitation, and the respective strategy is now being formulated. We have already done an analysis of what exists in the market and where we can innovate. There are also internal exploitation strategies, but we also foresee, and I think Professor Haralabidis can also mention more on that, but potentially a joint exploitation path. Yanni, do you want to mention anything on that further, or you stay tuned for developments in the future?
Yes, we have thought in the past, I have to say, to stop the project and develop a startup company with the same people. But then we decided to go as usual. I understand, and I hope I understand correctly, that this question has to do with the features that we are able to provide. And that are some unique features in this thing concerning translation, visualization, all this metadata management and things. I can tell you that the approach we decided to follow is to enhance as much as we can using our project first, the functionality. So we still have things to do. This is the first of the first, let's say, public presentation. So help us in making better. And I think we still have almost a year of work in front of us to make it as progressed as we can at this stage. And then we could use this MVP to go further. Of course, it's a different ball game, but yes, we also have different aspects in ourselves and also our organizations, because this is a collective effort of at least 5 organizations that are the members of the consortium.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Yanni. Now we'll go to the next question. What does exactly the comparison function cover? It simply puts the 2 texts next to each other or points to similar content. What you've seen today with respect to the textual comparison is quite a preliminary version. This is not how it is going to be done, because this is something that is still in development. Okay, and this is what also Stefania mentioned about the relativity, as well as highlighting the paragraphs or the structural elements in the law that actually indeed have changes. So I wonder if the memorandum laws are included. This is a question also for the University of the Aegean. Currently, no. But I don't know if we have plans to include them. Hari, Yanni?
No, we are dealing at this stage, we are dealing with laws only.
Yeah.
And we haven't, we will, our plan is to incorporate everything from the European directive side, the laws from Greece and the laws from Austria. Also, we are planning to integrate parliamentary data from both countries. So you will see more services in our next version. Yes, there are 2 questions that are very close to be answered. Do you also use consolidated texts and limit to enforced texts? Yes, for now we cannot showcase that because we are using only the document date at the front page of our filters, but in the next version, we can have this limitation, the filtering function to have the enforced texts.
Yeah, we will have more elaborate filters also for the different dates that are of importance for the laws.
And another question that is
there is another.
There is open. Before that, sorry. Yeah. The search can be adapted. Is the search can be adapted to the level of paragraph or no? We are fetching laws, but the level of detail is as you need. Meaning, the correlations could be at the level of the paragraph, but the search results won't be or aren't be at the moment at the level of articles, specific articles of a law or a paragraph. So the results, the first results of the platform are laws or directives. Then you can have more information when you're clicking a law. But if it is important to you, please state it in the form that Cefali shared to you, so we can have a look at that and see if we can work on that direction.
Okay, there's another question for you, Hari. Are texts from literature included? I'm not sure what this is meant for. And of course, case law is not in scope for the ManyLaws project. It will be the next one.
No, yes. The first one, I didn't get it, sorry, Sofia.
are texts from literature included?
No, again, no, no. Not at this
Yes,
stage.
I can say something about this type of questions. You see, we have a methodology now how to extend the database if we want. Meaning, the first was to work with a law, because this is our core element. And then it took us some months to agree on the proper metadata schema that has to combine Akoma Doso, ELI, DCAT, etc. But now we have that for the law. And also we see that several other legal elements can be modeled more or less, or with very minor alterations with this data schema, the directive. The directive is not a law, but it looks like a law. Or some strange intermediary elements in the Austrian or the Greek legal system. But then, you see, the methodology now is ready. If we want to add, for example, literature, which is very important for lawyers to have supporting literature, this is how I understand it, because you have all these legal gazettes that go deeply in some issues, and this is nice to be very close to the law that you are reading or you are referencing to. So it's easy now. It's easier now for us to expand the schema and say, okay, we need also to agree on a metadata schema for the gazette or the gazette article or the gazette paragraph of the article and so on, because we have this ability. You see, the machine is a little bit parameterized and can work now easier. So it took us 6 months, let's say, to agree and insert the laws, but now we can do in a fraction of time the agreement and the insertion on the whole schema of literature articles or of case law. Okay, case law might be a little bit trickier because the metadata schema might be a little bit more elaborate. But then we have also other small elements in the area. I think that with the law, we cover less than 50% of the whole information in the legal world. But
yeah, but
now,
we have already a starting point, and then this can be extended, as Yanis very correctly said. But this is not in scope of this project, but it can be easily done following, of course, other projects or other initiatives.
Sofia, if I may just add here a little comment. As Yanis put it out, it will be quite easy, or it would be quite easy to do it from a technical point of view, even with regard to legal literature. The problem here, of course, is a legal issue. We are basing our portal on open data, and legal journals or other legal literature normally wouldn't be open data. It would be proprietary data that would be sold to the customers. So that will be the issue that we will face here. But of course, it will depend on the legal community, whether more and more literature will also be made available in the form of open data, so that then it could also be included in a portal like ours, which might imply an appeal to the audience here to, within their respective environment, advertise for making more and more legal literature freely available.
Sure. Thank you, Guenther and Yanni. We now proceed to the next question. Is ManyLaws in contact with the Publications Office at the European Commission? Actually, the Intersoft International is one of the partners that deliver the European data portal, and within ManyLaws, we have also an objective, and this is moving forward in communication with the European data portal, an internal colleague, to have the ManyLaws portal being harvested by the European data portal. The European data portal is one of the portals that is operated by the Publications Office of the European Commission. So there is indirect kind of communication with them, and this part of the communication campaign will be also to make this known to all relevant stakeholders. Now, has been the whole EU legal corpus ingested? Can relations be shown between a directive and related implementing or delegated acts?
I would assume that it refers to EU delegated legislation, which gains more and more importance.
If I might say, for the moment, we have just a small part for demo purposes. But you see, this is another thing here, that when we are ready, and we are almost ready to do that, we will digest everything, because this system, as you have understood already, has two parts. We see now the part which is the front end, and the back end is not running all the time, meaning we need substantial computing power to digest and cross-reference everything with everything. We might even find relations from the Greek legal framework to the Austrian. I'm not sure about that, but we might. But certainly there are millions of relations within the Greek and within the Austrian, and then millions of relations within the EU, and then several 100,000 maybe, or thousands of relations between the EU and the Greek, EU and the Austrian. So, but this will be done in the next weeks, to digest everything and then to process everything. And this is why we said we're using a supercomputing infrastructure to do the processing, because this is not the thing that you can do every now and then for the whole corpus. Then you can do the deltas every now and then maybe. But have in mind that even if you insert one law, you have to run the whole world against this law, this new law, because it may reference or be referenced by many others.
Okay, and I think I have a final question or two. How will you manage data from member states that do not have consolidated legislation and do not use ELI? Still, in the scope of the ManyLaws project, we have provisioned to include Austrian and Greek legal data in the European legislation. So this is what is achievable in the time frame of the project in terms of course, ingesting as well as processing, analyzing, and then visualizing, comparing, and coming with these advanced interactive visualization and search information retrieval services. For the other member states, this is a goal beyond the project end, and I think it's of mutual interest to be able to extend and expand what will be delivered within ManyLaws, but currently we don't have a clear direction towards there.
But if I may, Sofia, the consolidated legislation and the member states that do not use ELI, the example that we have to showcase to you in this project is Greece. So in Greece, we don't use ELI. We are publishing PDFs from the National Printing Office. So we get these PDFs and we assign the identifier. We are creating the identifier. We are creating all the metadata and the structural elements for the specific law piece, so legal piece. So the example here is Greece. So I said it in the beginning. So Austria has a very sophisticated information system that handles this information, and Greece doesn't. So in our experiment, we merged two different approaches in one.
But in any case, we are remaining on these two countries plus European directives, and not extending to any other member states. So this was also part of the question for the member states.
However, because this is the SAMO summit and not a typical conference, may I ask the audience? I can tell you that soon, or sooner or later, I might say, we will put up a new proposal or a new project or something to go in more countries. Now, because as you see, we have the method, and what Harry said is very important. ManyLaws is designed especially for the countries that do not have ELI or Acomodoso standardization already in practice, because actually we create automatically via text mining all these thousands of metadata fields that others will have to do with hand. So my question is, if we go towards this direction and we're looking for partners, could you help us reach a country, a new country that we have? And if yes, just state this country. There might be someone from Sweden, so he says, oh, I would be glad to assist you, not as a person, but not even as an organization, but I can provide you some links in this country to find a suitable partner, for example. Huh?
Yeah, very true. Yeah, and very correct.
Let me see the
because
chat.
the data providers are indeed
Okay.
what we need here. Yeah.
Okay, we got Portugal, we got Lithuania. Okay, Slovakia.
And we have our next proposal.
Yeah.
No, we need 27. Okay, we will keep the names here because this is how Samo Summit works. Huh? The idea is that you are here because we want to do something after this 1.5 hour session, and many things have started with this type of questions. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Yanni. Last question, is ManyLaws accessible to try? Not currently, but the operational release in the right infrastructure will be available end of September, beginning of October, because we are starting our piloting phase. So if anybody is interested also to be involved in the piloting phase and provide us with feedback, he or she is very welcome.